401k advisors want to build a scalable practice, but aren't always sure what to do next. Welcome to Outcomes, the podcast designed to help advisors think, make decisions, and cast a vision to create a business for the future. Here's your host, Ross Marino, financial planner, author, speaker, and CEO of Advisor2X.
Welcome to Outcomes, the podcast. Today, we are joined by Lindsey Dickman and Cindy Kennedy. Welcome, ladies.
Thanks, Ross. Appreciate you having us.
Yeah. Hey, Ross. Thank you.
Well, let's start off with some introductions. Cindy, can you tell everybody what you do?
Sure. So I'm Cindy Horn Kennedy. I've been in the industry 20 years. Currently, I have my own consulting firm, You Say Kennedy, and I help advisors and providers as a sales communication coach so that we can see some real authentic connections being made to people who need help. And my volunteer time is with Women in Pension Network. I'm the board chair who leads our programming and research.
Excellent. Lindsey?
Yes. Hi, I'm with Escalent, home of Cogent. I'm an SVP of Wealth and Institutional Consulting. So I'm regularly talking with advisors and investors and institutional investors on behalf of asset managers and retirement plan providers to try to help answer business questions. I'm also the co-chair of the Atlanta chapter of WIPN.
We're big fans of WIPN on this end. We've been working with them for a few years. I love the work that you do. I think it's so important to our industry and really organizations like that to any industry. And I know a lot of what you do with networking and how you help practices and you help individuals with mentoring. And now all of a sudden I'm learning about this research report that was fascinating to me. So Cindy, if you would take us back to when someone first came up to you or sent you an email and said, "Hey, we got an idea on a research report from Lindsey. Can you tell us what went on?"
Lindsey came to myself, Daniela Moiseyev, and Jennifer Noor, leaders of WIPN at the time. It was the fall of 2019, and said, "Hey, let's get WIPN a voice. Let's have the opportunity to do research that would reflect the thoughts and the feelings of the women who are part of the group. This is the time where corporate America is reaching and stretching to be more inclusive and promote the skills and the brand of women in their practice. And I think this could be collateral that allows us to influence corporate leaders, people leaders, and our members themselves."
Now, Lindsey, you said this started as an idea, but apparently the idea grew. So what went on?
Yeah, I mean, Cindy said it better than I could have said it. She did better justice to my idea, which was at the very early stages. Mom trained me well as a kid to just ask. Can't hurt to ask. So I believe in the WIPN mission, and my job as a researcher is to give folks a voice. And because I believe in the mission, I said I'd love to amplify the WIPN voice. Let me approach and see what they think. And it turns out they've been thinking about doing their own research for a while, but as you might expect, we have big plates full of lots of things to do, and so I think I brought the opportunity to them to fulfill something that was already there, and really welcome their ideas and counsel on how do we take just this early thought and turn it into something meaningful.
When we first spoke, I was scribbling notes and eventually just stopped and said, "Please send me an email with a lot of bullet points," because I just couldn't keep up. But there were a few nuggets in there that when you hear them, they're maybe intuitive, but to now all of a sudden know that there's research behind them, it's not that it just validates it, but it's almost as if it takes your brain to a place of, okay, this is legit, it's credible, it makes sense to me. I need to now figure out how to put this into practice in my business. And as a guy, I've learned that I don't know. And what I mean is I've been married for almost 30 years and I have 2 teenage girls. I don't know. Took me a while to get there, but as I like to say, as the only man in the house, it's better to be slow than stupid. So I finally got there, and I think that's good. But I don't look at the business from a woman's perspective, but I need to understand that perspective. And of all the notes that I took, one of them that jumped out at me right off the bat was about job satisfaction. So Lindsey, could you tell us what you learned about how women view job satisfaction and how it may be a little different than the way men view it?
Sure. Yeah. So I'd say coming out of the research in totality, we have some opportunities for growth. There are some bright spots as well. So we do see some areas where there's decent satisfaction, right? 71% of women on the whole are satisfied with their career performance. But we do see things like work-life balance falling to the bottom of that list. 3 in 5 are satisfied with work-life balance, which leaves a lot of women who are not. And then you think about dependencies. So one of the things we learned is that satisfaction with things like work-life balance can influence how you feel about other aspects like compensation, right? So when you think about, business owners, right, and hiring women and retaining your best talent, what does it mean to drive their satisfaction? It's not enough to just check the box in certain areas, like comp or kind of career performance, but you also have to show career progression opportunities, advancement opportunities, and really satisfy some of the softer sides of the job as well.
Ross, I'd add, well, what Lindsey's group helped us find was that having a known career path was the number one indicator of a woman saying that she was happy with her career performance. And I don't know if we do a lot of discussion about where our careers are going beyond that initial hire conversation. So if I'm you, if I'm any advisor out there who's running a practice that wants to grow and thrive, I'm sitting down not only with women, but with everyone in the group to say, let's discuss skills and attributes and where you see this potentially going within the practice and how I can honor a shared value that we find.
And that certainly hit home with me as an entrepreneur who has a businesses, they start small. And if you have 3 or 4 people in the room, I don't really have a defined career path for you. So it becomes kind of challenging for smaller organizations to say, here is a career path for you when I don't even know what the business is going to look like in 5 years. I'm just hoping the business looks like something in 5 years. So any advice on how small business owners would approach this career path when they may not even know themselves what's going on for the next few years?
Lindsey, I'll get started and then I want you to offer. Ross, I'm a woman who moved from really education and client service to a sales position. I think one of the greatest things that a small business owner could do is remind everyone that they're in a sales position. It's persuasion. So it's everyone's job to sell and build a brand and to be able to create a career path or help develop skills and talents is helping everyone take a role in the presentation to prospective clients of how they could win the business. Perhaps they also take a step in expanding their network to be exposed to you as the operator of your practice. Making novel connections to new people can help you expand and find that client that's going to grow your bottom line.
That's good. Lindsey, what do you think?
I'd say don't wait to get it perfect, right? Recognize the importance, put a stake in the ground, invite the members of your team to have a say in what that looks like, especially if you're talking about small business, 3 or 4 members, they can be part of that dialogue. But as a business owner, you're thinking ahead, you're thinking about what success looks like to you in 5 years. Well, how does this team play a role in that potentially? And then at the point at which that no longer fits, you pivot. But having an idea of career progression needs to be part of that story to maintain satisfaction on those dear team members.
I know it's a balance I've had to learn to strike, and I won't say that I've succeeded at it, but it's something I'm working on, which is sharing where the business is going, but not sharing every single idea that pops into your head, because I seem to be good at coming up with random ideas, not as good at filtering ones that actually matter to the person I'm talking to all the time, but I certainly have plenty of business ideas. So I think finding that balance may be a challenge of here's where we're trying to go as a business, because when you share that with team members, they can see themselves as part of the future. But in that same situation, they may say, I don't have the education for that. I don't have the training. And I know one of the research nuggets I saw was 1 out of 3 women, they believe they don't have the education or training to advance. Do you think that's the same with men? Is it common, or what do you think about that?
It's a great question. I think in the future, there's an interest in trying to do a male-female comparison because I imagine that there are plenty of men who think that they don't have all the training they'd like. I'll throw in that the women in this study who are in a partnership are spending 1/3 more time than their partners on household management and childcare. If you look at some of the data around the need to switch who you are at work, right? Change your appearance and how you kind of arrive and how you show yourself at work, you can see how there are a lot of burdens on women and how that might crowd out time for training. So I think there are 2 parts to it. Certainly there's on the employer in providing permission for training, helping create boundaries, allow boundaries to create space for it. So it doesn't just have to be on your own time. But I do think there's this extra layer of burden on women around all these things that I have to get done. I'm trying to get done. And how do I fit training into that? How can I prioritize it?
I wonder if the key is to carve out training time during the day, because if you don't have the commitments at home, it's easy to go home and study for the CFP, like one of the people here on our team is doing, and they're able to do it. And that person will finish the CFP just about the time his wife is about to have their first child. So, yes, worked perfectly because it gets much, much tougher once you have a newborn. So that time at home is certainly a challenge for a lot of people out there. I just wonder how many business owners would be willing to take blocks of time during the day to do the training, and whether they're actually going to do that. You got any experience with that?
Russ, what I would say is, why does training have to be a big formal process? If you're going to have lunch with a prospective client, take along a female team member, take along diverse candidates, take someone from your office. We have an aging advisory force. How wonderful to demonstrate to your prospective clients that you've got young talent there that's supporting fresh ideas and the legacy of your business. So my feedback there is, it doesn't necessarily have to be sitting down in the conference room with books to study for attributes, but it's that opportunity to be involved in the experience and have great dialogue in the car on the way back to the office about what that meant and why you did what you did.
I'd imagine there's a connection between understanding how the business operates, how you acquire clients, how you serve the clients, that will connect with job satisfaction. Because you mentioned earlier, Cindy, about understanding the sales process. And for someone who maybe isn't in sales, they may think, well, why do I need to understand that? But I guess after you work for a little while, you know immediately the more you know about other aspects of the business, the more valuable you are to that business. So you want to have exposure to other aspects of the business and go to different meetings and have different experiences out there.
That's certainly been the way that my career progressed. And if for any of you who are business owners who are saying, I'm not sure that I've seen women sit up and express that, let's also talk about, our survey said that about 42% of women had a difficult time speaking up and feeling as though they were heard. So perhaps it's an understanding of communication styles. How often are you meeting with your team, prospective employees, to have an open dialogue about their thoughts and feelings and what they understand, to then allow you to shape that or give some guidance.
Lindsey, what did you learn about women fitting in at the workplace when the culture or most people there aren't like them?
We saw some perhaps unsurprising but dismaying data points come through around women of color, certainly. When compared to white women, lower satisfaction in a number of areas, higher incidence of feeling like they have to change who they are at work. So I'd echo what Cindy was just saying about this idea of being heard and feeling heard is so important. I think that is a theme that applies in a lot of areas where there's sort of, especially as a business owner, kind of who you are, your values, what you support, what you're willing to support. But then it's also making sure that's known among your team, right? Having a voice and then really validating that that voice exists. Somebody showing up and maybe you do have a diverse team, but ensuring that it's an inclusive team and providing the validation that every person matters and that their voice is heard. This translates to compensation as well. Maybe your team members are well paid, right? We can talk a lot about income and wealth gaps, but maybe that doesn't apply, but they need to know it. And we found that few women really have a sense that they're paid what they're worth. So there's I come at this from a research perspective, which is a lot around marketing and messaging. You also have to message the good things that you're doing and making sure you get credit for it.
Russ, I think a great example of advisors being inclusive and allowing everyone to be heard. Think about the sum of the people in the meeting. Hopefully your table is filled with diverse voices. Make sure you assign a number to everybody in the meeting and ensure that the total number of times that each one speaks is at least 3. You could do some head math that says, I need a total of 10 remarks from a diverse group. It's intentional, simple acts will allow your business to evolve and the people sitting at the table with you to feel like they had a part in it.
I think I read that in a book recently where they asked to have someone in a meeting make a mark every time someone spoke up to see how many times each person spoke. It might have been connected to the Google study of the teams that are high performing where everybody has a say in it. But that's a great idea to do that. To go back to what you had just said, Lindsey, to think about changing who you are or adapting to the culture, to the environment, that instantly hit me because I've always been self-employed and I've always had my own business. Well, I shouldn't say that. I actually had a real job when I was younger, had a couple of them. None of them actually ended on my terms. You can figure out what that means. I was destined to be self-employed and I'm good with that. It would never cross my mind to come into a workplace and act a certain way and be a certain type of person. It just that doesn't process on my end where I have to come into the office and then think, okay, how am I supposed to act here? I don't remember really going through that. And that's not how most people are going to approach it. And especially women of color who say that they know they have to adapt. That's a whole different mindset where it's almost as if you can't be who you are, even though the environment says, oh no, we embrace all of you, just don't act like you. Is that what they're saying?
Not on purpose, but that's the feeling. And you know what the end result, take it to its extreme, the women are going to leave. We see that. We see high incidence of women of color, especially considering leaving their organization because the culture is not a good fit. We see high incidence of women in general, and especially women of color, planning to change companies because the pay isn't there. So you don't always get the opportunity to talk them out of it, right? To hear what they have to say and try to fix it. It's too late.
What did you learn about networking in the research study?
Well, Ross, one of the ideas that came out of networking is 1 in 3 women found their next job thanks to network. So where Lindsey's creating that environment, if women aren't feeling authentic in their current workplace, they go to their network and say, hey, here's what I'm looking for. And that network has produced those next employment opportunities. I think that's one of the most beautiful things that we have within Women in Pension Network. Our members, 1,400 of them across the country, joined because they said, I know I need to deepen my network to expand my career opportunities and maybe even feel a little bit better about the type of work that I'm doing right now.
And I'm sure that has to be a challenge from my end. If someone approached me, if a woman approached me and said, I'd like you to mentor me in the business, I'm sure I could have some ideas and some thoughts and have a perspective on how to do that. There's no way I'm going to see it like you would, which means I would not be, well, I know I wouldn't be a real effective mentor in that situation, but just trying to describe what should a mentor do in that situation. I don't even know if I know how to answer that. So what would I do?
Hey, Ross, okay, so first, don't sell yourself short. Oftentimes what we're looking for a mentor to do is be a great listener. When you can witness what a woman is saying to you about her current experience, it allows you to have that no reaction. Sometimes what the voice that's in our head, we think you're going to react with shock and awe. And when you go, yeah, I've felt that way before, that's 50% of what we're looking for a mentor to do. The other things are, if the behavior was something that you thought that you could validate or modify, model, hey, when I've had this experience, that's what we're looking for. And the biggest thing that a mentor can do for us, sponsors included, is extend your network and resources. If you hear a woman coming to you with, hey, this is what I need, you are a natural connector. It would be very easy for you to say, gosh, I've got 5 advisors that I could connect you to discuss that solution. Who should I call first on your behalf? That's the simplicity of what we're looking for from a mentor and a sponsor. The data points that I'll go to, it was about 40%, a little bit more, of our ladies who said that their mentor could offer them an opportunity. Sponsors got a higher reading. It was more than 2/3 who said, yes, I believe my sponsor has an opportunity for me. We're not looking for friendships exclusively. Friendship usually comes from those 2 things, but we're looking for individuals who can intentionally kick the door open for problem solving and taking next steps.
I would argue too that for certain types of folks, being a sponsor might actually come more easily. If you think of mentorship as providing advice, I think that those who have done it kind of know what that's like and can see how to do it, but it can sound a little big, maybe a little squishy. Sponsor, an advocate for you, is fighting for you. You're making introductions, you're creating opportunities. There is a concrete nature to sponsorship. You can think about, if you have children, what you might be doing for your own children to help them advance in their lives. People you would kind of fight for this person. It's much less common. Only 17% of the women in our study have a sponsor, but it's even more powerful.
Russ, what I would ask you to do, and everybody on this call, make a list of 3 women. Every time you hear an opportunity spoken into the room, there are 3 names that you can share. Hey, have you thought of?
There are people who will respond to that really well. I know we do it with speakers for our conferences. And the quick story was, when I did the first conference, I was putting the agenda about 5 years ago, putting the agenda together. And I was the one doing the agenda, and I had an Excel spreadsheet. I got to number 18 and I looked down and I realized, nice, 17 white guys. And I just froze. I said, this is it. There was only one name on there. It was Sherry Fitz. I'm like, got to call Sherry.
Good name.
So, right? Sherry, 17 out of 18 white dudes need some help. And she helped. And as you ask for help, people respond quickly. But we also find that people tend to do, and it's just how the brain works, path of least resistance. So they'll often recommend the usual suspects out there. And you have to push a little harder on this, and it's worth it, because not only do we want diversity, but we also want new voices. In the conference world, that's a big deal. We want new voices. I want new interviews. I want people I've never talked to before. I think it's a lot of fun. So I think it's important, but you kind of have to push and do that. Is there anything, Lindsey, from the research that when you read it, you thought, I'm not sure I expected those numbers?
Yeah, the thing that was the biggest surprise is quantity of hours during the pandemic versus pre-pandemic and hours worked. And they were very consistent for these women. I can tell you from my own experience and reading lots of articles, the intensity of the hour has changed dramatically. It's a demanding job, and I'm sure all your listeners would agree. The same applies to theirs. But when you think about how the nature of the job has changed now, I think it only talks up the importance of things we've covered already around work-life balance and making space for the thinking and the training. Cindy, I don't know if you had different surprises.
I will give it. We talked a lot about compensation, and our members, one of the biggest reasons they come to us for with a question, it's about, am I being paid fairly? There's so much national media surrounding women are being paid less. The beauty of our industry, our average income was $152,000 a year for the 800 respondents in our audience. That's a good number. That's very strong when you think about what this industry can offer, because the first benefit we get is we get all this financial education to help our own families get shored up. But then you have the benefit of great pay for great work. But the thing was, our research indicates we had about 25 to 30% of women who were actually asking for raises. Those who asked, 50% of the time, they got the raise and stayed at the same title. So what does that say? If I can go to my manager and demonstrate, here's the skill set that I have, the returns the benefit has received because of that, I would like to be paid more. 50% of the time, it's coming to them. Leaders are recognizing we've got to make progress in seeing women paid for their skill set and what they deserve. But the hard part was less than 30% are actually stepping up asking for their raise. So we've got to be that advocate on behalf of talented women in this industry to say, you might have started at a pay base that you thought was really fair, but our research also says women don't feel like their pay is kept up with their skill set. We've got to keep asking with every new project for the opportunity to also receive greater compensation.
What I liked about what you just said is you suggested to identify the skills that you've added. And I think as a business owner, that's what's going to resonate with me. If you came to me and said, well, I think my pay should be higher, my first thought is join the club. Everybody thinks their pay should be higher. I know that's normal. But if you now can lay it out, here's the skills I've added, here's the experiences that I've had, here's what I've learned, you're basically pitching a case. And if you're talking to me, I'm not involved in the compensation, but if you were talking to me, you would have to lay it out. And that would matter to me, instead of just saying I'm committed and I'm dedicated and I've been here for so long, and I'm just sitting here thinking blah blah blah. Right? That doesn't impress me. But when you lay out, here's what I've done and here's the skills I've added, now you know I'm adding value to the business and I'm growing as a person. That's powerful. That's when you get the raise. So to point out that you really have to have a case to say, here's why I think I should get paid more, that's probably tough to counter. If a business doesn't value that, then maybe it is time to go.
And Russ, that's what we're doing in programming with Women in Pension Network. We wanted this research to be a voice for our organization, but also to inform the type of programming that we will do throughout the year. So we're taking our 5 main themes: career path, compensation, work-life balance, network, and inclusion. And those are each national webinars that are for our members. We ensure that women are hearing the research and then the call to action to say, work with someone within the organization to make that pitch. Talk with us about the work that you're doing and allow us to say, wow, that's really remarkable. Perhaps you're not feeling a lot of recognition from your leadership. It's not talked about, but you've got to promote and build a brand within the organization. And we are a group of women who are helping others get that voice.
Anything to add to that, Lindsey?
I will say on the raise topic, for business owners, for the half of women who kind of take the leap and do come and ask for that raise and they back it up, that is a critical inflection point. So this research shows we're able to infer the relationship with satisfaction with salary. And as you might expect, if somebody asks for a raise, they get it, they're satisfied. They ask for a raise and they don't get it, they're extremely dissatisfied, right? The negative greatly outweighs the positive that you gain. So I definitely pause when somebody asks for that raise, pause and consider, if I'm not going to fulfill it, am I ready to lose this person, right? That is a meaningful moment. And I also say there's opportunity to extend it to clients potentially as well. You know, when you think about financial wellness these days, extending more to kind of holistic wellness and thinking about all aspects of a client's or prospect's finances. I mean, as Cindy said, 152K on average for the women in this study. I think we'd all agree that's healthy, but what looks healthy on paper doesn't mean that it's fair. There's a real lack of data on being paid for what you're worth. So there are opportunities for those who are interested to assist clients in researching, having a story to tell to improve their financial picture and their comp.
Benchmarking perspective. Advisors are benchmarking their own fees and being very transparent, in most cases, with their book of business. So it's that same healthy practice amongst your staff. Look at the roles, the skills, the attributes that men and women have within your practice, and just make sure that there's some transparency and understanding of how you're rewarding and trying to keep those employees long-term.
Excellent advice. I wanted to mention, I grew up with a mother who was an executive, one of the big 4 accounting firms out there, part of strategic planning and HR. And I always remember her saying, I don't need the fluff, just pay me what I'm worth. Because she knew what she did. She was good at it. She was intense. Would be shocking for people who know me that my mother was an intense businesswoman, but that's what she did. She poured her heart and soul into it. And that was always her statement. She just didn't care about some of the other things that people would say, this is important to me. And everybody's different, but that was what she always stressed, is pay me what I'm worth and I'm good. And that's what I kind of hear with this study as well. And I think it's so important. And I just want to highlight that the women know what they're doing. They know what the men are doing. And this is the time of big data. We can find out what people are getting paid, and we know. So you have to make sure that we're paying women correctly and appropriately as a business owner. And also on the women's side, you have to know what you do. You have to know what your skill set is, and you have to advocate for yourself as well to make sure you communicate that. And if both sides work at it, it's just going to improve on and on.
A perception of comp is really a feeling. So know that we can do all the data research. Our research indicated that very few women had validated. They were moving on the assumption or the feeling as though they were lesser paid than their male counterparts or others within their department. So it has to be that dialogue with a woman or anyone on your team, candidly. Hey, how much do you need to make? Where's lifestyle? And then where do we go from there for the element of recognition and stretch and reach?
That's really good. Let's go to the final question. So, Lindsey, you're up first. It's the magic wand. It comes out at the end. If I allowed you to use it, can't give it to you. Sorry, daughters won't let me. But if I could, and you could wave it and change anything in the world not related to COVID, what would you change?
I have 2 young daughters. I would never try to steal your daughter's wand, magic wand. First of all, I understand the importance of a wand. So I don't know if you've heard that George Carlin joke about, have you ever noticed how everybody driving more slowly than you is an idiot and everyone driving faster is a maniac? Right. So my sweet grandmother used to sincerely say when she saw somebody speeding like a maniac, she said, well, maybe they're going to visit their sick mother. And my wish is for everyone to be able to apply that way of thinking. Just remembering that you don't know somebody's circumstances. You don't need to have all the details. You just need to remember that you don't have all the details, and that will allow more grace.
Wonderful. Cindy?
Beautiful. Mine would be that I'd love to change the internal talk track that goes through our head. If we have 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day and science says 85% of those are negative, I would love to give the gift to humankind to turn that voice from inner critic who tells you aren't good enough or strong enough or right enough to that of inner mentor. I'm not looking to take away the pain or the challenges of life, because that's helps us grow and value what we have. But I'd certainly like that voice to be more self-compassion focused, so we can build a lot of resiliency that changes things for a positive.
Changing the narrative in my mind will certainly change my life and impact people around me. Great way to finish, ladies. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Our pleasure, Ross. Thank you, Lindsey, for all this great work.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Outcomes. Subscribe now to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Advisor 2X. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.